In the world of software, how you build something, well, that's everything. And today, we're going to talk about a huge shift that's been happening. I'm talking about the journey from the classic all-in-one monolith to the super flexible world of microservices.
So let me ask you something right off the bat. Is your application really built to last? I mean, seriously think about it. Because the way we design our software, that architecture, it's the foundation for literally everything else. We're talking speed, how big it can get, and yeah, how innovative you can be.
All right, so let's get into it. And to really understand where we're going, we've got to start at the beginning, right? With the traditional blueprint, the monolithic model.
So what is a monolith anyway? Well, picture this. It's an application where every single piece, the user interface, all the business logic, the database stuff, it's all bundled together. It's one big, single code base where everything depends on everything else. It's one self-contained package. A really good way to think about it is like a single huge building. Every department, every function, it's all under one roof. And look, when you're just starting out, that's super simple. But what happens when you need to expand or just, change one little thing? You can't just decide to renovate the kitchen without causing a major disruption to the entire building. It just doesn't work that way. And that right there, that's where you start to see the cracks forming in the foundation. As these applications get bigger and more complex, that all-in-one model starts to have some serious growing pains.
This really gets to the heart of the monolith trade-off. See, you get this amazing simplicity right at the beginning. It's easy to develop, easy to deploy at first. But that easy start, it almost always turns into this massive long-term complexity that just grinds everything to a halt.
Okay, so let's talk about problem number one, scalability. This is a big one. Imagine the user login part of your app suddenly gets a ton of traffic, like it's getting hammered. With a monolith, you can't just beef up the login service. Nope, you have to scale up the entire application, all of it. The parts that are busy and all the parts that are just sitting there doing nothing. It's so inefficient, and boy, can it get expensive fast.
And then there's the flexibility issue, or maybe I should say the complete lack of flexibility. Think about this. You need to fix one tiny little bug, or add one small feature. In a monolith world, that tiny change means you have to retest and redeploy the whole thing. It's a massive bottleneck. And trying out some new cool technology for just one part of the app, forget about it. You're locked into one tech stack for the entire system.
Which, of course, leads us to what I call the maintenance nightmare. After a while, that single code base just becomes this giant tangled web of code. It's a mess. Trying to bring a new developer onto the team, it takes them forever just to figure out how everything is connected. And that complexity, it means that even a simple bug fix can feel like a super high-risk, heart-stopping operation. So, okay, if the monolith is the old way, what's the new way? What's the future? Well, let's talk about the modern blueprint that was designed to solve all these problems we just talked about. Let's talk about microservices.
Microservices architecture. It just completely flips the script. Instead of one giant application, you've got a whole bunch of small, independent services. Each one is a specialist. It handles one specific job, one business function. And how do they work together? They talk to each other through APIs, which are basically just clear rules for communication.
Let's go back to that building metaphor, because it works so well here. If the monolith was that one giant skyscraper, then microservices are like a whole bustling city. You've got specialized buildings everywhere, one for finance, one for inventory, another for customer support. And the best part? Each one can be updated, scaled up, or even completely rebuilt without shutting down the rest of the city. That is the massive advantage right there.
When you put them side by side like this, the difference is it's night and day. On one side, you've got the monolith, one single unit, one shared code base, and these huge all-or-nothing deployments. But on the other side, you have microservices. You get total independence, separate services, separate code bases, and you can deploy just one little piece at a time. For moving fast, for being agile, it is an absolute game changer.
Okay, so all of this sounds amazing in theory, right? But the big question is, how do you actually build this stuff? Well, that's where some really powerful tools come into play. And a huge one is Spring Boot, which really acts as a catalyst to make all of this possible.
Think of Spring Boot as the perfect toolkit for this job. It's got stuff like auto configuration, which just gets rid of tons of boring setup work. It comes with embedded servers, which means each little service can run all by itself. And the really critical part is that it works seamlessly with Spring Cloud to handle all the tricky parts of managing a system that's spread out. Bottom line, it makes building microservices so much easier.
All right, let's say you're on board, you're sold. But how in the world you get from that giant, clunky monolith to this beautiful, nimble city of microservices? You need a plan. So let's break down the action plan.
Now, the most important thing here is you do not try to do this all at once. That's a recipe for disaster. It's a slow, steady process. First, you look at your monolith and find logical pieces you can carve out. Then, you design the APIs so the old and new parts can still talk. You pick your tools, like Spring Boot. And then, and this is the key part, you extract those services one by one. It's all about incremental changes to keep the risk low. After that, you've got to automate your deployment with something called a CI/CD pipeline, which just means you can release changes quickly and safely. And finally, you watch everything. You monitor performance and you keep improving. It's this step-by-step approach that makes the whole thing manageable.
So as we start to wrap this up, let's just take a second and think about what this really means. What it means for the future of your architecture.
Because at the end of the day, this isn't just about chasing the latest shiny technology. It's not about that at all. It's about building an architecture that's tougher, that's more responsive, one that can actually keep up with the insane demands of today's world. It's about creating systems that don't just exist, but can adapt and evolve.
And that brings us right back to where we started, but now with a whole new way of looking at it. We all know the digital world is changing at a ridiculous pace, faster than ever. So the final thought I want to leave you with is this. Is your architecture ready for whatever comes next?